Welcome back to the Hannah Hammond Show. I'm here today with Arthur Hood, who is a serial entrepreneur and real estate developer and investor. And he's been through a wide range of businesses and still owns and operates multiple different companies. And we just spent 8 hours touring, was it 4 or 5 of your projects between?
5 projects between here and in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so we got up early this morning, watched their new project development in downtown Phoenix right by the stadium, and then we hopped on his plane and flew over to Vegas and walked 4 projects there, one that was completed and a few that are just sites. So I'm super excited to be sitting with him here today and to hear his story and share his journey with you. And you're currently the VP of Yourspace America, which is a large...
I'm currently VP of Capital Markets, member of Board of Directors, and one of the 3 original shareholders.
You said it better than me. Yeah. Of Yourspace America, which is a large storage brand, and they are raising capital for their projects and have completed some projects. And so it was really cool to see what you got going on today. And you flew all the way here from Dallas, Texas.
Yep. Jumped in the jet, flew out last night from Dallas, got in here, met with you this morning. We went out to our Phoenix site. Then we went up to Vegas, and we went out to our site on Owens, which is almost done. So you saw 2 of the 4 Opportunity Zone projects, and then you saw a completed project up there, Rancho, and then 2 in the pipeline, the Mount Hood project, which we are currently raising capital on. That'll be a 15-acre storage development, a huge site, boat, RV, climate controlled, and even some old non-climate controlled out there next to the Air Force Base. And then a very nice site over in Henderson. It's going to be a very modern, but not really look like a storage. It's going to look like an apartment building.
And that was the one by the residential
neighborhood there in Henderson.
Yeah, it was so cool to see these projects. And most of these projects, other than the really big one, Mount Hood, are about 150,000 square foot. So these are
they're
really...
all 120 to 160,000 square feet, 1,000 to 1,200 units.
So cool. So cool. I'm excited to be a part of it. It was cool to go look at them all. So, but yeah, thank you for being on the show. You're just awesome, and it's been so great to get to know you today. And I know we were connected through a friend, through one of the masterminds that we're a part of. And I just really would love to dive into your story first, and then we'll get into some technical stuff about your deals. But I mean, you're a serial entrepreneur, and you have been forever. You started businesses really young. So can you walk us through kind of that journey and what led you to get into entrepreneurship and how you just progressed down that path and ultimately ended up in real estate development?
I mean, I think it was just kind of a natural progression. We talked about it a little bit in the airplane. My dad was an entrepreneur, had a manufacturing company, engineering background, liked to invent machinery and equipment and things like that. Never really wanted anything to do with a chemical plant manufacturing business. I just didn't. Got interested in real estate at a young age, and I knew that I didn't really care that much for school, nor did it care for me. And I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, so that wasn't going to happen. And I decided I wanted to work for myself because I valued freedom over anything. And then I just kind of grew into different things. You tried some things that didn't work, tried some things that did work, and then over time, I built up a real estate company. I'm involved heavily now in self-storage development, but I'm still own a home building company. I'm still in land entitlement, land development. I also own multifamily, single family rentals. Got a little industrial. So pretty heavy in the real estate space. I've got investments with a couple of other partners in some industrial metal and other mining operations across Africa. We're in a couple of different mining operations. Have been in earlier years. I was in the coal business. I had some coal mining operations. That kind of transitioned to how I wound up with some of those same people in the industrial metals mining in Africa. Been in oil and gas, still have some E&P production. Done a little bit of mineral rights, still own some royalty rights. And then I started getting, in the last couple of years, started getting into a little more industrial metal manufacturing. We're now I have an equity investment in a company that does manufactures truck bodies. They're in Southern California, called DS24, and we manufacture truck bodies, refrigerated bodies, containers, roll-offs, everything that you can mount on a cabin chassis. We're even doing some fire bodies and some other things like that. So that's a manufacturing company. We're trying to grow that. I have a glass installation and cutting and manufacturing company in Birmingham. We do some residential showers, and that's kind of how it started. But over the years, last year or so, we've done a lot more commercial storefronts, a lot more buildings, a lot more complicated glass. We do some high-end conference rooms, and that's kind of fed into the home building company. We supply our own glass and showers, so pretty wide variety of things. And then I've been a private equity investor in a telemedicine company in Latin America and some other deals, so I'm always involved in just different things.
That's so awesome. When did you get, I mean, obviously your dad was an entrepreneur, and when did you have that bug right away just watching him, or when did you?
I think so. As we went over earlier, he was much older, so there was definitely some age difference there and other reasons, but I think I always saw doing something on my own. I always saw owning the store instead of working in the store. I think that was the biggest difference. I just never could see myself working for anybody other than me.
Yeah. And you think it was him that instilled that in you?
I would say half him and half me.
Yeah. Just in your blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I always wonder that, right, is if I was in a whole different environment, a whole different childhood, whole different situation, would I still have ended up being an entrepreneur? And the answer is 100% yes, because it's just in my blood.
I'd agree with that. I think, like I said earlier, most people don't do the entrepreneurial journey because it is easier to get a job. This is the most difficult way to earn a living, and for a long time, you won't make as much money as somebody else. But eventually, you'll make way more money. You just have to go through and pay the time to get there. Somebody says, well, how do I teach you how to do, or can you teach me to do it? Not really. I can help you do it. If you're already predisposed to be an entrepreneur, I can help you become a better entrepreneur. If you're predisposed to be a real estate developer and you've done, flipped some houses, maybe, bought a lot, done a lot split, you have some basic knowledge, I can help you grow and become a lot better. But what I can't do is take somebody from the couch who's never done anything, who in their mind wants to do it, but they're not committed to do it. Can't fix that. That's different. I can't do that. Because you've got to be an entrepreneur, you have to be part attorney, part accountant, part stubborn as a mule, which helps, and you've got to be able to figure out everything. I always go with FITFO, figure it the fuck out. There ain't a damn thing I can't figure out how to do. And you've got to be willing to figure it out, put in the blood, sweat, and the tears, fight the ups, fight the downs, some of which are out of your control, market cycles, and you're in real estate. You could have finished a project that's worth $3 million. Well, market cycle, there's no buyers for it. I mean, there are things that are beyond your control. You have to be willing to work hard, be stubborn, work more than anyone else, put in 100 hours a week for years before you start seeing the real reward of that lifestyle. And it takes a toll. People that are married, they got kids or whatever, you're not going to be there for every baseball game or football game or whatever. You have a business to run. And you run that business through building connections. You're going to travel. You're going to be with people. You may not be home for every holiday. And when you are, I can think the number of holidays that I've been on the computer doing emails or on the phone. Because some of the very successful guys I do business with, they work really hard. They'll answer the phone on Christmas morning. Not that you should, but they do. It's just people work. Might be a short call, but everybody's doing something. Because the people that are very successful, it's part of their life. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, I know. And I see that. And we were talking about that on the plane, is just the relentless tenacity to just keep going, because it's going to be hard and you're going to lose and you're going to work a lot and you're going to not know the answers and you're going to make bad mistakes and you're going to work for free or work for losing money. Correct. But you just keep going.
You have to keep going. You have to decide that's what you want to do. It has to be in your blood.
Yeah.
Somebody that it's in their blood that they want to do it, I can help them and help them grow and learn. But somebody who thinks they're just going to go from making nothing to all of a sudden having the magic formula to get rich and, have all this stuff, they don't see the years it took to get there.
Yep.
And they just want the result without the work.
Mm-hmm. They just want to get rich quick, take the next pill, take the next business opportunity, jump on the next fad.
Whatever.
And not put in the work.
And not build a core foundation. I have a core foundation of businesses. I have income-producing real estate. I have some bar and entertainment venues that produce cash flow. I have some other businesses in manufacturing and in other areas that all produce revenue that then I can go and deploy and invest in real estate. Then as we grew the real estate company, now that we're doing these large storage projects, now we raise outside capital. We bring in family offices, at private equity, investors, people that have sold businesses, people that need to deploy capital for tax benefits or what have you, and then we really build the storage business out of that. So it's everything going towards a reason.
Yeah. And what were some of the early struggles that you experienced in your life that that you had to face and overcome?
I think probably the earliest struggles were just figuring out what you didn't know without a lot of help. Because, I'm only 43, but I'm a little pre everything being on YouTube and that wasn't all there. So you kind of really did have to figure it out. Luckily, I had a decent network, some good attorneys that helped send some deals my way, some good realtors. You had to work your network. Your biggest strength in any business is your network. Having people in your Rolodex that you can reach out to when you need something, but also they reach out to you when they need something. You help them, but you also wind up with deal flow. Opportunity comes in groups and in waves.
Yeah.
If you're good at something, things happen your way.
Right. And what gave you, I think I was reading about you that you started a drilling farm and a catfish farm early on before you were 21.
Early on, I had a couple hundred acres in just outside of Utah, Alabama, that we turned into commercial catfish farm. Ended up selling that. And then I had a small trucking company running about 6 dump trucks, and then that grew into a directional drilling company. So we installed the fiber lines for like Level 3 and a few of the other telecommunication companies. We would do the road and the river and the creek crossings, things that you couldn't open trench. We would drill underneath and run fiber lines.
How the hell do you get into this stuff?
I don't even know that. That one I don't know. I did.
That's so wild. And then what got you into real estate? Because you also showed you got into land entitlements.
Just understanding a little bit of, you got the 20 acres on the corner isn't worth much as a hayfield, but 20 acres on the corner approved and subdivided for the gas station, the fast food restaurant, the mini center a mile up the road from the Walmart, that had value. And I learned early on you could option or tie up the property for not that much money. And then you could work the entitlement and improvement process relatively easily. And then you had a piece of property that, value might have doubled or tripled just because now it had an entitled use.
And how'd you learn?
That I have no idea. I just figured it out. Somebody tried to say, well, how'd you learn that? I saw people do it. I grew up in a fairly affluent community of Mountain Brook, Alabama, which was very old Southern in lots of ways. But people there were either doctors, lawyers, engineers, or entrepreneurs that owned businesses. Mm-hmm. So you saw people do lots of things that made money. There was a wealthy family there that owned a scrap metal business. They literally, owned 7 houses, including Aspen, out of scrap metal. So you just saw growing up people making money from not the sexiest businesses, but they just made money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool to see all the different opportunities out there to make money and to grow and build wealth. And that's awesome because I think about that. I grew up in a not affluent neighborhood or family. And so, but I still had that bug of like, I want to be successful. I want to push. I want to build. And I had a friend who had, her parents owned a general construction company. And that's what ended up giving me the idea of like, oh, I'm going to start a construction company and I'm going to get into real estate and all that stuff. So it's always fascinating to me to see where people come from and how those early days influence like what path they take in their life. And I think it just helps bring out more of who you are as you lean into the things that bring you energy and like that you get excited about when you're younger and you just start to follow those types of paths.
I think I knew I never really wanted to, school never really fascinated me. I was really good at history and math, not so much in English. I still can write probably the only guy that can write a 3-page sentence. Just was never my strong suit, but I can do mental math easily. Math has always done well for me, and I liked history. Studying the past, studying successful people throughout history, I've found that fascinating. When I was younger, we had some family friends that had a big farm in Utah, Alabama, and then the guy that used to do a lot of their excavating and construction work, I helped out a little bit just for fun. And so when I was little, let's say little, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, I was driving tractors, four-wheelers, bulldozers, excavators, lowboy 18-wheeler around, moving equipment, just stuff when I was little. And I still liked running equipment, but I knew early on I liked doing that, but I wasn't going to make a living doing that. And then kind of full circle, Now I still make a living with equipment. I'm just not the one running it. Make a living with equipment on our construction sites, on our subdivision developments, and in the mining business. So all of it kind of came full circle.
Yeah.
I can still get to play with a bulldozer when I want to, but I don't have to run one for a living.
Right. It's the best way to be, 'cause
Yeah.
then you can still enjoy it. When your hobbies become work, they're not so fun anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So, and so, I mean, how did you make your first million?
First million was, like everybody, was hard. It was a combination of doing a little bit of everything. The trucking and the drilling company made me money, put money in my pocket, took some of that money, started investing little bits in real estate, and I had built up a little money from that. And then first time I flipped a couple of entitled piece of properties, crossed the million.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then and then for a while, I did a lot of loan brokering, financial loan brokering on larger commercial deals. I did with me, and incidentally, one of the guys, the third partner in Yourspace, is a guy I used to do some with, and we did a couple of pretty big transactions. We did a $30 million land loan that I got paid well on down in Gulf Shores. We did a $36 million refinance of a building, $30 million. Over a span of a couple of years, did a couple $100 million in financings. Well, pick up, a lot of that stuff was complex. A lot of that stuff was 2 points.
Yeah.
So, if there's a couple of $1 million in your pocket, you take that money and then you start doing things with it. But that gave you the first influx of real cash.
Yeah.
That I didn't have, because you close one loan, all of a sudden you got $300,000 in the bank.
I know.
You
Tell
know?
me about it.
You
I
close
love
another-
this business.
You close a complicated loan and that you got 2 points on $20 million, you got $400,000
Yeah.
overnight. Now, at first it goes to your head and you waste a little bit of it because, I'll make another $400,000 next week. Well, not really, but that was the first start to having liquidity to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those complex loans because you got to work hard. You get paid more. The easy loans, you don't get paid much, especially on the big deals. They try.
No, we done some big loans at 1.25 a point, but I mean we're pushing them to banks. I mean, but I like the complicated stuff that not everybody can do because you get paid well for it.
Yeah, and land is tough, and
Land is extremely tough.
the horizontal work and all
And
that.
financing horizontal construction is tough. Land, horizontal construction, which is it's just another facet of land. You're just improving the dirt, but you don't have a true exit. And most of your home builder takedown contracts are at best hope certificates anyway. If you look at the contracts of most any of the national home builders, and I've done subdivisions that I've sold to them, they agree to buy so many lots at a certain time or so many lots at a certain price, but you have to provide the infrastructure and keep building for them. But if they ever want to stop buying, they pretty much just forfeit a deposit and stop buying. So that's what makes those hard to finance.
Yeah, especially if you're in turmoil in the market.
Correct.
And you're in a down market, and they want.
Luckily I just sold a 600 lot subdivision last year to D.R. Horton in Baldwin County, Alabama. A little over 600 lot subdivision, 300 plus acres. Was a little nervous about them closing because the market had just started to slow, but Baldwin County is a strong market for them, and they went ahead and closed, and I did quite well on that deal.
Geez, 600
lot subdivision.
lots. Wow.
And that one was in my personal company, HV Properties.
HP?
HV.
HV. Okay. Well, I got HB. So
Yeah.
HV and HV. So it's so fast. And now you have like 200 rentals and all these you've just absolutely exploded. And so you got into entitlements, then you got into the same business I'm in, capital brokerage. And then.
Yeah, I was doing capital brokerage probably since '06.
For how long did you do it?
I still do a little bit of it now, but not as a job or under an entity. Had a company called Global Capital Solutions. I did a bunch of it way back. I think I still own the entity, but I don't really use it anymore. Haven't probably done that since probably 2015 when I just started doing mostly my own projects. But I'll still help out if a developer associate of mine's really having some trouble. I can help structure something.
Yeah.
I'm not cheap, but I can make a couple of points on $20 or $30 million and pick up $500,000 quick, and it's something that I believe in the project and it's doable, then I'll sit there and figure it out.
Yeah. That's cool. I love this business. I have so much fun. So when did you start buying single family rentals? Or were you like just buying one house at a time, or are you
just buying one house at a time? At different times I've had portfolios. I'd build up 10 or 20 of them, sell them off, build up 10 or 20 more, sell them off. I'd buy run down crap, fix them up, refinance them, keep them for a while. I got out of most of them about 4 years ago when the market went crazy. 4 years ago, I sold most of them because my upside was huge. And then here recently, I did a deal where I picked up controlling interest of a pretty big portfolio, and I'll probably do the same thing with it.
Is it stabilized?
Some of it is, some of it isn't. We'll probably refinance some of it. We'll stabilize some of it, fix up some of it, keep some, sell some.
Cool.
And cherry pick the good stuff that's close enough to home to manage and get rid of the outliers. Yeah. You know, 4 houses in Fayetteville, North Carolina can go away just because I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah, and the nice thing about being on the capital side and being a mortgage broker in the commercial real estate business is you get to really understand the development process because you're the one seeing
You see it all.
Yeah.
I mean, before I did a lot of development deals, helping finance them definitely helped understanding the business.
Yeah.
And understanding what is financeable and what's not, because one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have, especially development entrepreneurs, they get not deal fatigue as they're tired of the deal, but they believe so much in their deal, they don't necessarily understand why it's not financeable. Because everything has to be financeable. You have to be able to underwrite it, put it on a piece of paper, understand what the backup exit is, understand what the alternative value, if it doesn't work for the lender, is, how do they recover their money. Regardless of how successful the developer's been in other projects, you have to understand the deal. And a lot of developers have trouble seeing it. They have trouble taking off their developer hat, and then they put on their sales hat, but they can't get the sales hat off to actually understand the underwriting and the deal of why it may or may not finance the way they want it to. Most good deals can obviously be financed, but not always the way the developer likes. You know, you may have to have pref equity. You may need mezzanine finance. You may have to raise a little bit of additional equity. You know, senior debt at a cheap rate is only going to take so much of each deal.
Right. And especially right now, it's getting a little bit lower and lower.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, 3 years ago, you get 85% on infrastructure development. Now you're at 50% on infrastructure development.
Yeah.
The equity check's bigger.
Yep.
And as the developer, you have to be willing to sit on, especially on the single family, you've got to be willing to sit on it for a while. I have fairly low leverage on most of the single family I build. I'm definitely under 50% debt, and I prefer to keep it that way. If I have to sit on it, that's fine. I can refinance and turn it into a rental. So far that hasn't happened, but I'm not levered to the point that it won't cash flow as a rental. Mm-hmm. Now, if I got more cash tied up than I should, probably, but I don't have to worry about it.
Being able to sleep at night is priceless. But
Yeah,
it's a
it
fine
definitely
balance.
is. Definitely is.
Because we were talking about this too. Is like debt is part of some of the biggest part of the American dream. Like our ability to borrow money and not have to go work for it to do projects is huge, and be able to scale and compound our wealth using other people's money is awesome. But with big risk comes big reward too. So that fine line of like what's, safe and cautious. And
It's like I always say, for me, the Dave Ramsey method isn't what I want to do. But for some people, they should do that.
Yeah.
They're not equipped to do that. But if you can manage debt correctly, understand your leverage, match that leverage with cash flow, so the payments always are a little bit less than the cash flow, and have enough reserve to cover vacancy, release up, an air conditioner repair, or whatever, you can build massive wealth using controlled debt. If you can get cheap bank money, you can build massive wealth off of it and make a good cash flow spread between the debt, the taxes, and frankly, get a lot of tax breaks. But some people don't know how to use debt, and they really should be cash.
Because they're responsible and they're going to make decisions.
And there's probably also a point, if you use debt well and you've built a massive net worth, you're 60 years old and you don't want to work anymore, well, okay, maybe you sell off a third of your portfolio, generate a bunch of cash, pay off the other 2/3, and then you're debt-free.
Yeah.
But that's more of an individual question.
Right. Where are you at in your journey? And it changes as you go through each quarter of life.
Correct.
Yeah. And so did you get into development while you were in the capital?
I did.
Okay. And what was that first development project that you got involved with?
Well, the way I got into development, because I had done some more complicated deals, I had some deals where in lieu of a cash fee, I took small equity percentages in the deal, some of them not so small. So that's kind of the first foray into that. And then during the 2008 crisis, a few of the deals that I was in, stalled out. A couple of them I wound up owning the whole damn deal.
Oh, geez.
Because the developer basically walked away. So I learned from the bottom back up as far as how to recapitalize and fix some deals.
What were some of the things you learned or some of the strategies you used to recapitalize and fix
Figure out everything you can to get to cash flow quickly. If you've got a property that, well, you could master plan it and it's going to sell off at this and this and this and this. But if you just go ahead and sell that corner right there and not owe a damn thing and sit on the rest of it free and clear, sell off the damn corner. A lot easier to carry it because land isn't free. Even if it's paid for, you got taxes, you got everything else to carry it.
Right.
And me personally, I try to use very limited debt on land deals because it has no cash flow. So I don't like a lot of debt on land. A couple of those big subdivisions I did, now they were big. I had to have some debt on the land, but I only had a little over $2.5 million of debt on it, and my other operating businesses could cover that carry. Otherwise, I wouldn't want that kind of debt on dirt.
Yeah.
I don't mind debt on something that pays, but something that costs, I don't like a lot of debt on.
Liabilities take money out of your
Liabilities
pocket.
that are taking money out that aren't putting money back in your pocket.
Yeah, that's why land is tough and it's hard to lend on because.
And in the right scenario, if you catch the land just at the bottom of the cycle, and then as the cycle starts to increase, every demand picks up, you get the land entitled, and you're exiting the land mid-cycle, you're great. You don't want to buy and entitle a bunch of land end of cycle and have to sit through the next 3 to 7 years.
Yeah, that's not fun. And so what were those first projects that you did? You said you ended up taking a project back that you...
Just a couple of small subdivisions in Baldwin County that I was involved with. And then I wound up with a couple of beachfront property deals where I wound up with some condos in lieu of payment.
Were these the ones that you had gotten equity in lieu of the loan payment, the loan fee?
I did.
Oh, wow. And you got the whole properties back?
One of them got the whole property back. Another one, I just got some selected condos in the building.
Gotcha. Cool. And then what happened from there?
I just kept working that angle. Ran a small company that did complex financial structuring for debt deals. Helped raise a little bit of equity, and at that point started transitioning into some bar restaurants and some entertainment venues that had come my way. One was through a shopping center development. I started doing that. I was also involved in another couple of shopping center developments where I helped put the tenants in and ended up owning a piece of that, and then started doing some of the single family. I was buying, the original fix and flip junk houses, fixing them up to at least be inhabitable rentals. And then it started moving more into, okay, well, I've been through 4 or 5 cycles on development deals, helping provide initial financing and permanent financing. So then I started doing my own deals. And then I take a little bit of cash and said, I want to diversify a little bit. And I started, looking at operating businesses that were going to pay me money. Because the one thing I did learn from the real estate business, make a lot of money this month, starve for 6 months, make a lot of money this month, starve for 6 months. So I started getting into operating businesses really heavily in the last 7 years, where I'm in various industries on stuff that's, has sales, generates revenue every day, makes money every day, makes money while you sleep, makes money while you're awake, you're generating money every day. All of that, combines together, and now that gives me the ability to go out, tie up bigger parcels of property, entitle bigger pieces of property, hold stuff for development, build more multifamily, build more storage. Now, generally the storage, I may, pick up the property, entitle it, and then may flip it to our storage development company. But it gives me some flexibility because I have cash flow coming in. One of the things that I think some real estate entrepreneurs miss is they don't run enough cash flow businesses or invest outside of their niche of real estate so that there's always money coming in the door.
That is a fact.
You need money coming in the door. You need operating businesses that are paying you money every day. That way you can invest in apartments, hotels, whatever you do, but you've got money coming in the door every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I see so many sponsors get in those situations where they're developers, on these big projects, and they're equity rich, cash poor, and they're always running into cash issues and having to inject cash back into the projects, and they're in this really not fun situation, and they work so much.
Yeah, and I made some great deals that way. I've had developers come to me that need a chunk of cash, and they're very wealthy on paper. A guy was worth $100 million on paper, but was out of cash. And I was able to cut a very sweet deal for myself because I was able to inject the cash at a time they really needed it. Where if the developer had other cash flowing businesses, might not have wound up in that position. So I think it's important that every entrepreneur, if they're heavy into real estate, also has other sources of income that are paying money every day, every week. There's always money coming in.
Yeah, because these are long ass projects. 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah, some of these subdivision developments could be 15 years, 3-phase major developments, and you may not really see money coming into your pocket till the latter 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And how do you recommend people navigate that? Because we all hear the thing, jack of all trades and master of none, just focus on the one
Except
thing.
the true statement of that is not that. Do you know the true statement of that?
What is it?
I'd have to Google it. Somebody'd have to Google it, but it's jack of all trades, master of none, but better to be. Somebody actually should Google that really quick because it's actually cool. Because it is not what it says.
It's the opposite.
It is absolutely the opposite of jack of all trades, master of none. The full statement is completely opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because as an entrepreneur, you pretty well are a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And you better be pretty damn good at all of it.
And you just find the right the right operators, who are the masters in their craft. I guess you could see it that way. But as entrepreneurs, we have to wear every single hat. As you said, the CFO, the CMO, the CTO, the CEO. Like, you have to be everything at some point.
I always say you're HMFIC, head motherfucker in charge. And you better figure it out.
Yeah. How do you advise people? Because, like, if you're somebody who is...
Like I said, I'm really good at advising people that have already done something.
Right.
And are growing. I have a really hard time advising people that have never done anything to get started because just the knowledge gap is so far.
Right. No, I'm talking about already successful people that are successful real estate developers and don't have that reliable cash flowing enterprise or business or means over here. How do you advise? But they're already working 12, 18-hour days, 7 days a week.
They need to figure out how to work a little more and how to buy some cash flowing businesses. There are entrepreneurs, investors, and business owners in boring blue collar businesses that want to retire every day. Figure out a way to start buying those businesses so that you have that cash flow coming in.
And so do you normally buy businesses versus start them?
Usually. I've done both. But I'd always like to buy something that's got a little bit of cash flow and grow it than start from scratch.
And what type of industries do you like outside of real estate from just the cash flow perspective?
Just the cash flow perspective, I like certain entertainment venues, bar, nightclub, live music, very particular on that. I like manufacturing, domestic U.S. manufacturing of something that's got a decent barrier to entry that nobody's just going to create tomorrow. And then I like home services, heating, air conditioning, electric, you name it.
Yeah.
Any of the trades, because as we talked about earlier with the foreman on our Phoenix site, people aren't in the trades. That will not be replaced by AI at any point in time. It's jack of all trades is the master of none, but it's sometimes better than the master of one.
Yeah. It's always better, I think.
It is. That's why I always hate when people quote that, because they only quote half the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Because it's jack of all trades, but better than a master of one.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be an entrepreneur, and most people who are become very successful at some level own their own businesses or invest in businesses. They're not just doing the one thing. Even, if they're a doctor that's a master heart surgeon, they're still investing their money in other.
We can talk about it more when Jeff comes on a little bit, but the tax code's not written for anybody except business owners and entrepreneurs. If you work a normal W-2 job, you get fucked. The government fucks you. There's no two ways about it. But if you're an entrepreneur, you own your own business, and you spend a little time educating yourself on the tax code, you can keep a lot more of the money you make because you get to spend money, invest money, take care of growth expenses before you pay tax. Where a W-2 employee, tax man's there for the first penny.
Yep.
And I'm not here to debate whether right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't get into that. I'm just stating tax code's written for you to own a business.
Yeah, I remember when I became an engineer for CAT, 20 years old, I think it was 20, the first paycheck I got after 401k, taxes, insurance, all these things, it was nothing.
Correct.
And I sat there at my desk and I literally started crying. I was so pissed. I'm like, I worked so hard. Where'd all my money go? And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I'm not doing this.
No, there is a better way.
Oh, yeah. And it's way better. I mean, if you look at compound calculator, and you can compound your wealth tax-free or with very little taxes over time, it's a game changer versus going and being a W-2. And if you are a W-2, there's strategies.
Well, in real estate, you get equity growth, so you get appreciation and depreciation on the same asset. You don't do that on your W-2 job. So the depreciation generally covers most of the rental income, so that's more or less tax-free. Then you get other depreciation that covers some of your other income while the property is becoming more and more valuable. And then at a later date, you can refinance the property, take cash back in your pocket, which is in the form of debt, and that's a tax-free exchange. So you buy a property for $100,000, put $100,000 in, it's worth $200,000. Our cost basis is $200,000. Now it's worth $400,000. Go to the bank, you borrow $300,000, you put $100,000 in your pocket, tax-free, plus you get to depreciate the asset to offset your other income. I mean, the system is rigged for owning a business, not for a W-2 job. So if you really want to see, and the compounding difference is massive. If you make $100,000 a year in the real estate business and you keep most of it, versus if you make $100,000 a year in a job and you pay a good chunk of it to the government, one's going to grow a lot faster than the other.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know how everyone is an entrepreneurs, but it's just not everyone's cut out for it, unfortunately.
Everyone's not cut out for it, I'll agree with that. But also there's no financial education in the school system.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't know what a checkbook is, a credit score. Well, they hear a lot on the internet about credit, but they really don't understand it. But they have no idea how to structure themselves as a business. I mean, even a W-2 employee can do certain things. They could invest. One spouse can become a real estate professional, and they can take advantage of passive losses. But nobody teaches this. I think one of the biggest failures we've made in the school system is we just create employees. We do not create free-thinking entrepreneurs.
I know. It's so sad. And I know that's Robert Kiyosaki's mission.
But that's a whole other subject to unbox. But
I think it's rigged like that. They don't want to create.
No, you don't. You want employees.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
Big corporations would.
Yeah, right. Big corporations, right. I like 1099 contractors because then they can have their own business and write off their expenses, and they get to act like an entrepreneur, like an entrepreneur within the business, and I like that. And then I don't have to pay their taxes, and they don't have to pay their taxes because I can teach them these strategies to help them grow. Because I want all my team members to be successful and make tons of money. I don't want to be like sitting on my ivory tower and everybody's miserable and giving all their money to the government. So you
made a comment earlier. Millionaires are very good at making themselves money. Billionaires are very good at making everyone around them a lot of money. Yeah. And that's a key difference.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what you do now with raising capital, and you make up people a lot of money.
And it just makes yourself more money.
Right. I mean, that's what you've always done. This foundation of the business. The money that you make is a direct correlation of the size of the problems that you solve for other people.
Correct.
Yeah. So
I've always liked that saying, yeah.
Solve big problems.
Make big money. Solve little problems, not make much money.
Yeah, I had one of my mentors is a billionaire right around there, and he said that same thing. He's like, don't worry about your own growth. Just worry about the size of the problems that you can solve for other people. And your growth is a byproduct. Like, you will grow as big as you want to grow. So it's an interesting viewpoint. And it's true, I think, is just solve big problems.
And be careful how you spend your time. Like we talked about earlier, I have a housekeeper that comes in a couple of days a week, and it's not because I'm too good or not going to do that stuff, but my time's better suited doing other things. So I've kind of learned that, I have a couple of assistants that work for me, and they take care of a lot of things. And, basically if it's not making money or growing the business or the goal of one of the businesses, I don't do it. I'm better off big vision, thinking, putting people in the right places, meeting new people, understanding opportunities, underwriting deals, doing the things that I know how to do, and let somebody else take care of everything else.
Do what you do best and delegate the rest.
Correct.
Yeah. So moving into Yourspace America, what got you into the storage space? Because you were doing land. Were you in a specific asset class when you were brokering loans? Or were
Not really. Any form of, whatever came through the door, to some degree. I got into the storage space heavily. Russ Colvin, my partner in the storage company, had built another big storage company as an employee, and really was the only one building their storage business. Built it up quite large. It sold, made a lot of money, but he was still an employee for it and didn't. He got a nice bonus, but it wasn't what it should have been. And then he started wanting to do it on his own. He created Yourspace. He partnered with a guy named Robert Papiri, who knew me, and then Robert and I came in and helped put up the deposits, tie up properties, finance the land acquisitions, which are tough to finance, as you know. So we bought some of the dirt, and then I put some of my core investors, some of my friends together, and we all had cash, and we were able to take down the initial properties in cash, and then internally we raised the equity to build these, and that's how I wound up on the board and as a large shareholder of Yourspace. And we just decided to grow that. Our goal, I really think over the next 5 to 7 years, is to do at least $2 to $2.5 billion of construction cost within 7 years, and hopefully have an assets worth in excess of $5 billion within 7 years. We have the deal flow for that. We're starting to get traction on the equity and the institutional equity to get there. And then, we'll be a very large player in the storage space, but we're finding that it's better, and we've all done one-off deals that are value add or storage conversions. But the equity gain of a ground-up deal, buying raw dirt, entitling it, we had a property that we purchased for $700,000, and after we got it entitled, it was reappraised at $3 million.
Jeez.
So our biggest value is entitlement, and then, of course, taking that entitled property, building something, because our equity upside, we got deals that will be in for $25 million that'll be worth $50 shortly after stabilization.
Wow.
That's allowed us to generate an average IRR of 39%. That's
insane.
A 2.9 multiple on equity. We got one deal that'll probably be a 4 multiple on equity. Most are going to be in the 2.7 to 3 times on equity. So $1 million in, 2.9 back.
Yeah.
We're working very hard to make most of the deals. You put your money in, you'll earn a 10% pref or an 8% pref, depending on the deal from day one. That'll accrue until there's cash flow. But once the deal's completed, built, and starts to be leased, we'll then refinance the deal, rate dependent on this, and you may get 100% of your money back or 70%, but some large chunk, if not all, of your money will be returned, and then your pref stops, but now you still have your equity in the deal. And then if you've got all your money back, the return is infinite. So if you got a deal that you put $1 million in, 2 years later, you get most of that money back, and then 3 years after that, so by year 5, we flipped a deal we built for $20 million for $45 million, and your $1 million gives you a total of $3 million over the history of the deal. It's a 3x return between cash flow and equity appreciation. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Storage to me is one of the best asset classes because you got multiple tenants, so you got diversity of tenants. If I've got a warehouse and I lose a tenant, I'm going to feel it. And it could take a year or two to re-rent a warehouse or a shopping center space where I have to redo the space. I got to put money in for tenant improvement. Even an apartment, I may have to replace carpet, or I may have to do this, that, or the other. Well, in the storage, I sweep the fucker out and move somebody else in. It's easy.
So nice.
And we don't have to worry about eviction. In most states, not every state, but in most states, they don't pay you, lock them out. After a certain notice time, you can sell the locker, storage wars, sweep it out and rent it again. You don't get the down loss time, which I think is very valuable to the investor.
Yeah.
And then as Jeff will talk about in a little bit, storage has really good opportunities for accelerated depreciation.
Do you think more so than other asset classes, or just in cost segregation in general?
More so than certain asset classes, way more than certain asset classes, because a lot of that building that you were in is all quickly depreciable things. The garage doors, the roll-ups, the non-structural walls, the landscape, all of those things can be written off on an accelerated schedule.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it like that, of the different asset classes and how that might change the depreciation on the cost segregation.
Absolutely.
I really like this whole, because I love the idea of entitling land, because I know so many people that entitle land and they triple the value of the land once it's entitled, but I don't know really much about that space. I've just seen people talk about it and do it, but I've never really dove into it.
Right now it can be a great space, but the problem is right now with the little bit slower market, you may be sitting on that dirt for a little while. You may get it entitled and triple the value, but you still have to have somebody willing to transact and pay you that value.
Right. And it's not cash flowing until it does.
Correct.
Yeah. So what is the process to entitle land, and what are some of the risks involved in it? And like, if someone wanted to get into this business of land entitlements and make land worth more money, 2 or 3x.
Work with somebody that's done it. I mean, can the land, what is the land zoned for? Do you have to do a zoning change? Is it an administrative change? Does it have to go to the county commission or the city council? Are you going to get public neighborhood pushback and resistance? Do you have to do public notice where you're going to get a hearing with every Karen in the county showing up because, you know, she doesn't want anything built there? So you got to know what you're doing and navigate it correctly. And you also need to entitle for things that are not only needed and that will make you economic money, you know, whether it's the corner lot for the gas station or the subdivision or whatever, but you don't want to swim upstream and entitle for something that the county's going to push back on. You know what they don't want in a certain area.
How do you know?
Well, pay attention to learn the area, find out the local attorney that helps with entitlement there. A lot of times you'll hire somebody local that's not really an attorney, but they work on entitlements. We have a company in Vegas we use. We have some guys around the country that we use that specialize in entitlement. They'll work with a law firm or work separate, but they help you navigate the political process of entitlement on property.
That was going to be my next question, is how political is it really? Because everyone that I know
Everywhere's
says,
different, but it's always a little political.
yeah.
I mean, you're changing zoning. It's always going to be a little political.
Yeah, I know people are like, yeah, you know, that building, it's supposed to be 3 stories, but it's 5. It's because of who I know or whatever, you know. It's just...
There's a little bit of that. And I've worked in some political stuff over the years. You know, we talked about I did the IGATE. I worked on the IGATE thing in Texas to, you know, help PTSD and veterans and substance abuse with Brian Hubbard and Governor Abbott and some other people, Ashley Cash, and a bunch of people. We all kind of came together about 8 months ago and kind of worked together, everybody. And some people did a lot of stuff. They brought in a lot of military veterans and got that done. But everything, if you get everybody on the same page to a same goal, same thing with land entitlement, you can get things done.
Yeah. I guess what would the first step be? Like if let's say I wanted to go out and there was a piece of raw land and I wanted to build a storage facility on it, what's the process from start to finish to get it entitled in a
call us, we'll do it.
30-second.
Call us, we'll do it if it can be done. Make sure that it's not something that's prohibited on the property, number one.
Per the current zoning.
Per the current zoning, because now you got to go for zoning variances, and that can be done, potentially. But now you're into public notice, your hearings, and the Karens get to show up. You try to want to stay within the guise of what is allowable under that zoning. But then if you do have to change zoning, which is okay, you know, like farm land to something else, just make sure you understand the county rules and get buy-in from the county. Show them how it's going to benefit them, their tax base, the revenue base, and the population.
Yeah. And what does that process take?
It's different in different municipalities.
What?
It could take you 3 months to 2 years.
Do you have an idea?
Except in California, it could take forever.
Yeah. But how do you, where I'm going is, how do you mitigate risk if you're going to lock up a property and try to get it entitled?
You want to lock it up and have a contract where maybe you go hard on small amounts, but you don't buy the property until you get it entitled.
Yeah.
You know, close on. But just because you got it entitled, sometimes that can be a little bit of a trick. Because let's say you tied up the property for $1 million, put up $25,000, you're paying $5,000 a month, option fee. All of a sudden you get it entitled. Now you got to pay the $1 million, and it may be another year before you sell it. So you definitely don't want to close unless you have to until you get it entitled for the intended use. But then you still have to market it for that intended use and liquidate it and find a willing buyer. So now you may be able to make a lot of money at you. A piece you paid $1 million for, you may sell it for $3 million, may have $500,000 tied up in carrying entitlement costs. You may double your money, you may triple your money, but you got to have the stomach to carry it.
Right.
That's where the cash flow businesses come in, where you can't afford to carry it.
Yeah, and then you can not worry about it because you're not relying on it for your cash flow. Cool. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've learned throughout your life in entrepreneurship and real estate?
Hire people when you need them and get rid of them when you don't, or when you find out they don't meet the culture, get rid of them. If somebody doesn't see the vision you're going towards, get rid of them. You know, if you're growing the business too big for their comfort, fuck them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because they'll work against you without even realizing it.
How do you find A players? How have you found them?
I've done everything from the headhunters to connections to people, and like I've said, hire fast, fire faster. You know, I made the mistakes in some of the business keeping people too long. because you like them or you think you can change them. But either they're going where you're going or they can go out the door.
Yeah, that's something Pace Morby told me too, is just you're going to have to go, might have to go through 20 people to find one person that's really good for one role.
That's correct. And you got to be willing to say, you know, your values are great, but you don't align for the business. And then you get people say, oh, you're going to try to grow that too big. I don't want to see it that big. They may not say that verbally, but you can tell by their action, they don't want to see you get there. So if they're not a cheerleader to where you're going, they're out the door.
That's good. What else? What other mistakes?
No
or
negative
lessons?
activity, no negative attitudes, period, because it just affects everybody around them.
Yeah. Everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's good energy, when you're in a state of flow, your productivity is 5x.
Correct.
And if one bad apple will rot the whole bag.
Just get rid of them.
Yep.
They got a bad attitude, bad life at home. You know, can't fix everybody. Move on, find somebody else.
Yep. What other good lessons have you learned?
Never give up and just figure it the fuck out one way or the other. Make it happen and just continually make it happen. Yeah. You know, and then sometimes you'll see people that you don't necessarily think you should get rid of, but you just found a different role for them. Some people will fail in one role, succeed in another.
Right. It's got to be right person, right seat. It might be the right person, but not the right.
Right person, right seat. And you got to do a little bit of ego management, especially like me, where I'm running a bunch of different businesses. You've got to make sure that you put people in the right places with enough authority to do what they need to do, but not so much that they hide the problems from you. Because one of the things that I've said is, you know, my phone's on 24 hours a day. Everybody can reach me. Preferably, I don't want idiots reaching me, but I'd rather have an idiot tell me a problem that I can step in and deal with than not know about the problem. So you know, and then I show up at all my different businesses at different times and listen, even not directly by asking questions, but just seeing what's going on and see if, you know, something needs to change. Because you've always got to keep everything moving towards something better.
Do you run your businesses off a specific operating system or no?
No, probably should. I've looked at it, but probably should do EOS, but I haven't yet.
Yeah. There's a bunch different ones out there. There's a guy in Genius Network that has a company called Next Level Growth where he kind of creates a custom system based on each business and what they need. Seems to be cool too.
That'd be cool to check out.
Yeah, because EOS is just like, that's just what it is, but different businesses might need a little bit of a different variation.
I know you said you're using EOS.
Yeah, I implemented it recently, and it's been good. It's been good. I just need to find that. I think, yeah, I don't know. As I grow, I eventually want to find that COO operator, like really own that operational role. But we're not at that point yet. We're so new on the capital side. So, but cool. So we're going to wrap up here, and I'm going to interview Jeff. We're going to talk all about cost segregation and tax strategy.
We're talking about our number one cost seg guy.
Yeah.
The one that makes sure we're going to have negative K1s the first couple of years so you can take your passive losses.
Speaking my language.
Exactly.
Yep, negative K1s is what I get excited about. So what is your goal for Yourspace America? I mean, you had one project that was already completed, and you're somewhere in the high 30s of IRR, which is...
My goal is to try to maintain our high 30 IRR, try to maintain 2.5 to 3x multiple on equity, and just keep growing that till we become a massive owner of self-storage, developer and owner of self-storage.
And at that point, do you plan to sell them off into a REIT? Or
we might sell them off into a REIT. We may package some up and sell them to private equity. We may keep some forever. Mm-hmm. At this point, we're in a growth mode. We're in a mode to make ourselves and our investors a lot of money, and we'll see where that goes. It's a little too early to state how you're going to, start talking about dispositions prior to knowing exactly where the market's going to be at the time.
Right.
Yes, we are going to sell some so we can generate cash for the company. We are going to hold some. But if we amass a big enough package, maybe we do go to a REIT, which would be a tax-free event. But we'll figure that out as we go. Our number one goal, make money, passive cash flow, and capital appreciation.
Love it. And for those out there who are listening that either are newer developers or want to get in development or want to scale their development company, do you have any lessons off the top of your head that you've learned that might be valuable for them, to mistakes that maybe they shouldn't make, or lessons you've learned that'd be...
Understand having enough cash reserve for double the time you think you need. And if you're not going to have the cash reserve, have the cash flow businesses that can fund it.
Yeah. Number one cause of business failure is lack of working capital.
And I think another thing is pay a little more for a better contractor. We're using Arco Murray pretty much exclusively now. Nobody's perfect, but they've done a massively good job for us. And when the little problems arise, they just take care of them. I mean, you heard some of that today. They had a problem with some of the corrugated steel. They took care of it, got the manufacturer in there, and we fixed it. I mean, they just do a little bit more. Yeah. And when you got projects all over, it's good to have a contractor you can count on.
The A-plus players.
A-plus players, and you met both of the superintendents today. Both of them kind of knew what they were doing.
They were amazing. I was like, oh my God, these guys are really good. Yeah, it was cool to see.
And hopefully we'll start seeing some young people decide to get into the trades because, as you can see, they're getting a little gray.
Yeah, I know. It was nice that one superintendent was younger and he was a aerospace engineer.
Yeah, he was a foreman, under the other guy, but yeah.
It was really cool to see.
And out of the Dallas area. So
how has it been? Yeah, your area, your hood. No pun intended. How has it been? Because you sound like you've had a lot of self-funded projects in your days and or partnerships and things like that. So the world of capital raising is a whole new world for you, right?
Correct.
Over the past recent years, how has that experience been? And it definitely hasn't been the best market either. Like raising capital.
It's definitely been different because in the past I either did projects all on my own or with 3, 4, 5 people that I knew that would just text each other. I'd do some of their deals, they'd do some of mine. So it was a very close group of people. Mm-hmm. Or a friend of a friend that, hey, I got this, can you split it with me? That type of thing. And I also do some hard money lending. So I've done stuff with outside people, but not that much. This has been different because I've had to kind of rethink how we do it. We've had to go out and raise private capital from individual investors, from other entrepreneurs. Now we're getting deals with family offices and larger quasi-institutions and private equity groups because our equity need is much larger. Our average deal is probably 7 or 8 million of equity. You can only do so many of those yourself or with your small group. So, we're probably at about 70 million raised, give or take. Goal would probably be break 100 million by the end of the year in equity. Using our ratio of about 30-35% equity, that's a significant amount of construction that'll be underway.
Yeah, significant amount of construction. What are some of the lessons you've learned in capital raising? What are some of the roadblocks that you weren't anticipating, and what are some of the strategies that you're doing to raise capital?
I found it easier to raise from other developers that are kind of retiring. They don't want to do new projects but have a lot of cash. That's a little easier because they understand what you're doing. Mm-hmm. The hardest part is when you have a lot of smaller investors, which we welcome. We love the smaller investor. But it's more challenging when you have more people in a deal than fewer people. But overall, we have a great group of investors so far, and we have a great group of projects. So I'm pretty happy with it.
That's cool.
And I'm still learning the capital raising every day. But
yeah, it's a whole different world. And I know it's when you have a lot of, what's your minimum investment?
50,000. But really it's 100.
Right. Yeah, that's my fund is the same structure. But it's a lot more challenging, and we're starting to see people start to get away from the small check writers because it's a lot of work. I mean, if you have 1,500 investors and they all don't really understand development, and you really have to educate them, and if one thing is delayed or one thing doesn't happen perfectly, they don't necessarily understand it, and it's a lot of money for them sometimes, and it can be challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody that sees this that wants to reach out, that is interested in investing, they can reach me directly, which is arthur@arthurhood.com. or arthur@yourspaceamerica.com, but it's easier just to do me directly.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for sharing your information. And so 50,000 minimum investment. Arthur knows what he's doing. He's got an amazing team. They have the best contractors, amazing sites. They're adding so much more IRR and value through entitling the sites versus already getting them entitled and paying a premium for them. So it's cool. I'm super excited to see these projects break ground, these other projects that are coming up that you'll be raising capital for, and start to see some more of these get completed.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Arthur.